Welcome to Steps Podcast. Thank you so much for listening in every single week. As you guys know, I have a different guest who will come on the show and talk about all things ADU, all things multifamily, all things real estate investment strategies. And I'm very selective of who I have on. These are very highly vetted individuals, highly experienced people who have a lot of knowledge and a lot of value to bring to you guys every single week. If you have someone who you think might be a good fit for the show, make sure you guys reach out to me. And another way to stay connected, I know that some of you guys are listening in every single week on the podcast, and you may not know that I do have my active YouTube channel where I'm always sharing other sorts of tips and tricks on what I'm actively doing on myself as an ADU strategist and consultant and investor. And then also, make sure you guys reach out and follow me on Instagram, StepSellsADU. I constantly have different content on there showcasing a lot of what the strategies that we're talking about on this podcast, whether it's midterm, ADUs, multifamily, acquisitions, you name it, just property management, mom life, all the things. Make sure you guys follow me on there so we can continue to cultivate this relationship. Now, enjoy this episode, and I'll see you on the next one. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another podcast episode of Steps Podcast. This is episode 79, almost 80 episodes in. We've been talking about ADU hacks, strategies, updates, and just trying to keep you guys informed to the best of my ability by having very amazing people come on every single week. I think, we've been pretty consistent with almost 80 episodes. And today I have a very special guest. I'm very excited to talk about what we're going to share today. Of course, ADUs, but we're also going to bring in, some of her expertise and knowledge. And we share a lot of passion. So it's going to be a very great episode. Today, I have Dr. Sharon Barnes. She's a licensed realtor in California and an advocate for ADUs. As a former attorney and extensive experience in real estate, she empowers homeowners and professionals to maximize highest and best use through ADUs. She's also the author of Unveiling Accessory Dwelling Units, aka ADUs, which is a comprehensive introduction, which basically simplifies the ADU development process, and also the Realtors ADU Revolution, offering strategic insights for real estate professionals in this growing market. She's also a speaker, trainer. She does a lot of things. Like, we share so many things in common, and I wish I would have found her sooner because I didn't even know that she existed. Like, we recently met in person at the ADU Academy.
Yes.
But prior to that, we actually did the ADU cohort course with Timothy. And that's where I really got to know her. And I would just listen in on those calls every week. And, those calls were like every Wednesday or so. We were listening to them in the background, but we were also engaged. And I just remember listening to you and I was like, oh my God, I got to get to know her. Like, she really knows her stuff and I need to learn more from her. And then here we are now. I feel like we've developed this relationship because I also do events. I also do a lot of advocating. I actually have a real estate ADU course for realtors and for investors. So we definitely have to connect and help each other out. But today, I want people to really hear more about what you have going on, how you got started in the space, but kind of share a little bit more backstory on who Dr. Sharon Barnes is.
Oh, wow. Thank you, Stephanie. Congratulations on 79 episodes. That's
Thank
a lot.
you.
You're doing an awesome job. I'm so happy to be connected with you. And you were talking about how we met in person at the ADU Academy. And I was looking at the speakers and I was reading bio and I'm like, I have to meet her. And then we met, we already met over, virtually.
Yeah, I was just very quiet in the cohort course.
Yeah.
Because I was usually working on the back end, just listening to the calls, but you were very active. So I already knew who you were at the time we got to the ADU Academy.
Yeah. And then, try not to bogart your session there, the breakout, because we were going back and forth, but I very passionate about ADUs. And like you say, it's kind of doing the same thing, but we're in different geographical areas. And it's just every ADU project is unique and there's so many moving parts and so many strategic partners and people that we work with to, enhance ADUs in our community, that is different. It's not, is definitely not cookie cutter. And we're on the edge. And I tell people, like, it's like surfing, right? It's like you're waiting on that wave, and that wave is coming up, but it haven't crashed yet. It's still an upward movement, and things are moving so fast. And it's like both of us have written books and have courses and so forth. A lot of people aren't doing it because the laws are changing, everything's changing. But one of my motivations for even writing the book is like, people need something tangible, that they can hold in their hand, that they can mark up, they can get some basic information. So when they call their local jurisdiction or get their journey started with ADUs, they'll have something to talk from, but a lot of people think it's a waste of time because it's changing so rapidly and it varies from city to city, county to county. But I think that we both see the value in having something documented to help people get from that dream to a reality. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. No, I mean, it's well said. And what's crazy, even though we put a lot of content out, right? You wrote these books, I've done the courses, people still won't read it, and they still won't. I have people who have bought my course and they don't do it. Like, I'm just like, wow, okay, thank you for the money, but like, read the, the information that I took time to put on there, because like you, I'm sure everything in your book you've done through practice, right? Like a lot of it is questions that you've been asked in the past, and you're like, oh, let me package it up for them so that they can learn some of the process, educate themselves. And really, like, knowledge is power. Once you're empowered with knowledge, now you feel comfortable talking to the city, talking to the architect, talking to everybody as you're assembling your team of ADU experts, right? And like you said, not every city or jurisdiction is the same. So you have to work with, it comes down to the people that you're going to choose to work with. And in order for you to make those highly vetted decisions, you got to know what you're talking about. And which takes me to, before we get into more of the ADU conversation, I really want people to know like your background in law and kind of what we were talking about offline, right? Just to give people more context and perspective on your expertise and like really your upper hand, compared to your average realtor or even average ADU specialist, because we got a lot of those that came up in the last couple of years.
But, and with different backgrounds, it's true.
Different backgrounds. And I think you have a very unique one that ties in real estate, construction very well, right? Like the two that we should really know.
So I added back. So I'm in my second career, and basically I probably had a couple if I include aerospace, but in my second career in real estate. But before I transitioned over into real estate full time, I practiced law for about 25 years. And I've also been a business owner, running a law firm, doing consulting, working with nonprofits, small emerging businesses, and so forth. And I also cut my teeth while going through law school in aerospace. So I bring that up because aerospace is a lot of contract negotiation, compliance issues, breaking elements down, knowing, how to follow instructions and actually build a multi-million-dollar, product at the end and understanding the pieces. So that's kind of the background. And then I got over into real estate, and it was really my clients when I was practicing law. It was really my clients who got me into real estate because I was working with mortgage brokers, contractors, mortgage developers, builders, these small people getting together. And really, you didn't understand that I could not participate in the profit or in a project without a real estate license. It was very limited, right? And so then a lot of the projects, sometimes they needed more help than they could afford. So the real estate was like a value added. So, we're talking about securing land for a housing or multifamily development, I would be in on that. Of course, negotiating the contracts, bringing all these parties together, making sure documentation was in place, compliance, and dealing with other professionals. Because when you get together with doing a land development or a multi-million-dollar project, there's people around the table and everybody has to understand their role. So as an attorney, knowing, issues and contractual obligations and reading between the lines. And one of the things that I carried with me from law all the way through and just core to my personality to me is to be able to just make it plain. Like they say, just make it simple. One reason for writing the book, it wasn't a lot of experience. Yeah, some experience went in there, but I felt that I was able to look at the law and make it where the average person can understand it. Because I will break it down. It's like, you need to not get lost in the jargon. Don't get people, with keywords that they'll make you make major decisions and all they have is the words and no depth to them. So, doing that through law and being able to communicate with business owners and homeowners and the average person trying to make, a living for themselves or create generational wealth for their family, been able to take that over into real estate as well. So my clients that were in the real estate development and investment arena was like, hey, you need to get your real estate license, get your broker's license, okay? So you can help us get the project and everything. And then I could participate more in that because, as you know, you really can't share commissions. If you don't, even if the attorney has a license, but the attorney does not have the real estate license, it's some limitations. The license carry a lot of restrictions, okay, and compliance issues, and so we have to be careful with that. And so I've been over in the real estate now about 15, going on almost 20 years. So actually, and so my transition into accessory dwelling units or this niche or getting passionate about it. I'm a kind of a storyteller too. I was sitting in this class. Okay, I took I was active in the Black Chamber of Commerce, one of the founding members for the Inland Empire Black Chamber of Commerce, and one of the foundations came and they were offering scholarships to people. They just want us to take the course to take our business to the next level. So in short, I was sitting in this class next to a client networking associate of mine. She had been a legal client. I had helped her open several businesses, curves, a restaurant, whatever, right? And so we're sitting in this class trying to, re-strategize, going to the next level. And she tells me about a friend of hers who had recently gotten a job down in Los Angeles area with a company that was converting detached garages into accessory dwelling unit at no cost to the homeowner. I'm like, wow, okay, I need to know more about this. Okay, my community need it, my network needs it, because what we have, the credit problems, we have issues, and I was in the Inland Empire where we have some of the smallest houses and the largest lots. So it's like, man, and they were telling me in this class that even though I was in real estate, I had to pick one thing. I've always had a hard time putting myself in a box with one item.
Here. Yeah.
That is not the life. Okay. If I'm only dealing with one issue at a time, it's a very, very slow day, right?
Yeah.
So, but when this came up, it's like, okay, everything else aside, commercial real estate, the typical residential, whatever, I want to learn more about this niche. And so I started doing the research. I started reaching out to my investment clubs and going to different meetings and listening to these people who had started down this path as well, or had some understanding of accessory dwelling units. In the end, I graduated from that class. We had to do a presentation, like a pitch deck, in front of potential, investors and whatever. And so they gave me like the most compassionate, they gave me the most compelling and everything, but they could not see how they could make money at scale with the ADUs because it was a one-off. Okay. And I was like new and two, so I didn't know how to explain that to them. And laws were still very early, right? And so, but one of the things that I pointed out in that exercise was that they had did the point in time count that they do every year for the homeless. And I had looked at the point in time for my community, and found that over 70% of the homeless that they counted was senior citizens. And I'm like, these are people's grandparents. These are retirees. They have worked. Okay, I mean, something's wrong with this. We have a housing shortage, and we have these seniors out here, not to mention veterans and other things. So we need to really do something about that. And that's where that passion, that drive, is like there has to be
together,
right? And so, and then they were saying you could build ADUs for less than you can buy the house and stuff. Those prices back then doesn't exist today, but it's still economical. Right. But anyway, that was kind of my transition. So this client, this networking associate, friend, past legal client, put this in my ear, and that was the seed for the passion. So that's when I transitioned. But like most realtors back then, I'm still trying to figure out, how do I make money at this? Because you couldn't sell the ADU. The ADU was for existing homeowners, so it didn't fit into the traditional market.
One of the things you and I were talking about offline was that, you know, some homeowners and even some investors want to see immediate returns with some of the costs that are associated with ADUs right now for your build out right now, but they're not looking at the long term ROI, right? For the forced appreciation that they're creating, the cash flow that they're going to see, and eventually that property will be worth 2 to 3x with time, but not 12 months from now, right? Like you can't expect to have that ARV within 12 months. And it's like this immediate gratification type of world that we live in. And I think it goes the same for realtors, right? Back when I first started, I think 2017, 2018, I got started because I actually dealt with a contractor who didn't even have an LLC. His title or the name of the company was like false.
Right.
Building ADUs. He wasn't lending ADUs. And I did an event with this guy. And I was like, it was when I first started doing events. I was like, you know what? I want to do a networking event. Let me bring somebody who knows about ADUs.
Right.
Found him on Instagram. He wasn't who he said he was. So from that moment forward, I took it upon myself to find highly vetted people. I would go look at projects. I will drive everywhere. And I put in the free work for about 2 years. And now, you know, I've positioned myself as an ADU expert in SoCal, at least in Orange County.
Right.
And that's the long-term play. I knew that I wasn't going to make immediate commission, right, when I first started becoming or transitioning into an ADU specialist, because like you, I don't like to be put in a box. Right. But one thing that has come up in conversations with other agents is, and maybe this is something that you can kind of help, right, with your attorney background, is sometimes they kind of don't know if they should be working both, right, real estate sales and also put the ADU specialist hat because of, you know, liability issues, or how do you can you practice both, right? If you have your license under a brokerage and you're also doing consulting for ADUs. I think there's, you know, I've heard some people say, well, you technically need your owner's rep if you're giving advice, you know, on rehabs and things like that, which sometimes we are, you know, if we're presenting proposals and things like that. So again, it's lack of knowledge, but I think that's probably one reason why they don't take the full step, you know, because a lot of realtors, let's be honest, you should know ADUs by now. Like it should be a requirement when you become licensed to understand that process, because that's really the only strategy that's helping homeowners and investors keep afloat and be able to hedge against inflation, hedge against, you know, low inventory, no inventory. Like it just, ADUs require and create so much flexibility. I don't understand why more realtors don't jump on the bandwagon of this whole ADU movement.
Well, again, I think that a lot of the realtors were still thinking about how to make money out of it. There was a lot in your statement. So first of all, as whether or not you can practice both. So during the shutdown, which was after my course where I really got introduced into ADUs, I did start a business under ADU Advantage, where I offer the consulting, ADU consulting, and bringing parents, okay? Understanding that when we have our agency agreement with our broker, it's for the buying, selling, and investing of real estate, okay? But we are consultants, and if you have that special knowledge and you have the ability to consult with someone and get compensated for that, that's not violating that contract. Most of them, the ones I've seen, the one I signed, because our broker and our license are for traditional real estate. This is not that we cannot be a business owner, that we can be a business strategist, that I can't bring my negotiation skills, reviewing contracts and whatever. Now I put it under my business and have my business insurance and have my own EIN number to run it like a business so there's no confusion. Right. However, being a licensed realtor is a benefit in the sense that when it does come down to investors or homeowners looking for property to purchase, to build ADUs, to convert, or even to sell, I bring not only understanding the process of buying and selling and being able to do that under my license, but I also can bring other people to the forefront. Like we talked about, one of the things with the realtors and why I wrote, the ADU revolution for realtors is that there is a revolution. Now, this ADU thing been going on for a while. We talked about that, right? The way, but it is a shorter period for realtors. It is now where, first of all, consumers are coming saying, hey, I want to buy a house with a yard big enough to build an ADU for my mother. These realtors are going out and they're eyeballing lots saying, oh, this has a big backyard. Okay. During the investigation, that 17-day period, usually in our contract, they're not saying, hey, I'm not an expert in accessory dwelling units. We need to look for an ADU specialist. You need to bring a contractor. Here's a checklist of resources so that if you purchase this home, you can have some confidence that you can actually carry out your goal of building for your mother. It's more than eyeballing it, right?
And it's like almost like a feasibility, but
but they don't even understand that there's feasibility studies or whatever.
Right.
I mean, and
I did over 100 feasibilities myself. Right. And I still schedule them from time to time, and Cameron does them now. But the first couple of ones I didn't get paid. I just learned. So I think it's part of that instant gratification with agents. It's understanding that if you build or if you learn more skill sets and more knowledge about a specific niche, right? Like you also don't just know about ADUs, you're also a probate expert. And that's a whole world in itself. I've done a couple probates, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert. It's not like my niche, but that's just an added skill set. So if I'm choosing between an agent that is ADU certified and probate certified versus a traditional agent, like who do you think that the typical homeowner or investor would want to go work with? Probably the one that's more skilled, and has more knowledge. And to take in all this knowledge, it doesn't cost you much. There's a couple courses, books, and things here and there, but really it's your time and energy is where you can begin to really like learn that knowledge. And that's how you're going to get paid. I've realized that having some sort of niche and having some added skill set in the marketplace compared to your average agent is really the only way for even us to stay in this type of industry. Because I think like the real estate sales, at least with automation and AI, at some point it might be something that's very streamlined, and our commissions, we're really going to have to fight for them, right? We're kind of seeing that now.
We have to now, yes.
We're already seeing that now, which is why I'm only focusing on listings, because on the buy side, I'm just like, it does not make, any sense for me to be spending time and energy on this. I could be focusing on consulting more ADU clients and then also doing the property management, which is my third service. So I'm like you, I kind of wear different hats. You kind of have to, you can't just focus on one avenue. You got to be an advocate to be solution oriented for your clients. Hey, these are all the different hats I wear. Which one do you need help with? Right. And I think that's a much better value add as an agent or as the consultant, in the marketplace. But I think what's nice is that you and I are very passionate about it. We've both done the work to try and educate realtors and homeowners. And then one big one, is investors, and legislation just keeps updating every single year. So it doesn't even give people a chance to really understand the law, because you think you know it, but then in 2 weeks from now, you might have another bill that just passed. Right?
And the implementation process, and that's
a whole other thing.
Yeah,
right? That we learned.
From the law.
We talked about that.
So like from the law, there's the letter of the law, the spirit of the law, and the application. And we had all these laws changing, and a lot of them have come, like, condolizing ADUs and selling them separate. Good concept. One city might be doing it, but it's going to take a while for the implementation to get there. But I do want to back up a little bit on with the realtors. Number one, I think, again, when I wrote the ADU Realtors ADU Revolution, it's because now the multi-listing platforms, the California Association of Realtors, even trying to offer like one specialization type course, and with the MLS going in and having a section for ADUs, is that it's transitioning over into real estate. And I've talked to realtors, and they'll say, oh, well, if they want to build an ADU, I just tell them, hey, this lot is probably big enough and they need to go down and figure it out. I'm like, you can't do that anymore, because now that it's transitioning over into the mainstream of a real estate industry, how does this customer, how does your client or buyer know where your real estate knowledge stops if you don't tell them? And so this brings me to the one pivotal encounter that I had at one of the county agencies, where I encountered this gentleman who came in that was very agitated. And the whole conversation centered around the seller and the agent said. The seller and the agent said that it was an ADU. The seller and the agent said it was permitted. The seller and the agent said, and now I got getting ready to put in the solar and to do renovations, and I get this notice that it's not permitted. So I want to know. So we're talking and everything, but he's just really agitated. But when he gets his turn to go up to the representative, he says, I just want to know whether my casita is permitted, because the seller and the realtor told me that casita was permitted. And the response from the representative was, sir, first of all, casitas are not permitted structures. Words matter, okay? We use these descriptive terms, the historical terms, the Spanish version of a small house, but that's not what the law is written for, okay? So words matter. So he wants to know if this casita is permitted. The representative says casitas are not permittable structures. Then he says, what is your address? I can see whether that structure constitutes or was putting it as an ADU. So he gives him an address. He looks it up, and he said, well, the area you're talking about, that structure, it is permitted, but it was permitted as an extra bedroom. So did the seller and the realtor misinform? They didn't lie, because I'm sure it was intentional. It was permitted, but it wasn't permitted for his intended use. It wasn't permitted as an ADU, which means it could not be rented out legally or occupied continuously as he intended. And he relied on their word. So that legal.
That's such a huge. That's huge. I had that happen recently. I sold a property in Santa Ana, borderline orange, very nice neighborhood. And this was a property that we were managing, because my license, my real estate license, I have it hung with the brokerage where I'm the only in-house agent. And it's really a property management company first before, an actual brokerage. So we manage a lot of properties, and that's mainly where I get my listings from. Tired landlords, people who inherit properties, probates, kind of everything. And so this family, it was a trust listing. And so one of the people in the trust thought that the back home was an ADU, and they even had a separate address. Even our property management company had a separate address for it, because we were renting it out to two separate tenants, the main
Right.
home and the ADU,
Right.
right? So I actually went through before listing it, before what, even
Right.
verifying what the property management company had in the system. We went to the city and I
Right.
found out that it was not a permitted
Right.
ADU. It was permitted as a room, right? But
Right.
unfortunately, it had a kitchenette and it had a bathroom.
Right.
And so I told him, unfortunately, it's not permitted. We can still sell it, but we have to disclose that it's not an actual ADU, conversion.
Right.
But eventually we sold it, but I
Right.
was very upfront. This is
Yeah.
not an ADU conversion. It is a conversion of a room, and we had an additional bathroom permit, but it's not an ADU. So
Right.
yeah, words
Yeah.
matter and doing your due diligence up front. But something told me this is not permitted. I can't remember what I saw in the plans because I had the photographer go and I was like, this is
Okay.
not
Yeah.
permitted. I was like,
Yeah.
this is not
And some of
permitted.
them, yeah, and some of them you just can't tell because I mean they're done by contractors who just
Right.
didn't, to have to know that prior to the ADU laws that reduce some of the barriers and reduce some of the fees, that people have to pay like $40,000 for fees and permits. And so a contractor that could do the work on his own house did it on his own house. That house later is on the market. It looks perfect, and it probably was up to code at the time, but he didn't get it permitted. So with this gentleman who was there, like I said,
I'm sure he was very upset. Now,
yeah.
could he, not convert that? But can he convert it and maybe
Well,
add
yeah.
a
So
little
what
bit of space?
happened? So the other part, I mean, because it was good and bad. So you there, and he could convert it. So he looked at it, and the representative says the lucky thing is he did have his drawings. He had the drawings for the unpermitted structure. So Rep said, let me look at these drawings.
Oh
He
yeah,
said,
yeah.
okay. He said, lucky for you, the architect put in a wet wall where you can put in what you need to make it the ADU. So when you're dealing with your contractors to rehab it and to installer, have them add in these applications too. And it'll probably only cost about $3,000. He said, but you're lucky because if you did not have these drawings,
Which
we'd be
most of the
looking
time they
at
don't.
$30,000, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that even if it was permitted as a room, we, the county, we don't keep drawings, right? So it
No.
would have been there. So even going back to the realtor, at what point do you, number one, verify drawings exist, even if it's permitted, unpermitted? Secondly, when do you assist the buyer in getting someone who can understand and read drawings? You can give me a set of drawings. I may not be able to read them. So you give them to me, but I have to, that
You don't know what
custody.
you're reading.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't know what you're reading. You got the 17-day inspection period, and all this. And there's just some fine lines as to when a person who doesn't own the property yet gets drawings that the owner has paid $15,000 for to go see, and it's a whole thing. But again, for realtors, it's no longer about them figuring out themselves because they're relying on you. It's
They
part
are.
of it's part of your contract now. Okay. And it says in that paragraph when the inspections, we usually think about inspections, we get the termite and the home inspection. But if you read that paragraph, it says any professional
I think
that's needed.
you should be doing the termite, the home inspection, a sewer inspection, because
Yeah.
what's happening with a lot of these older homes is
Yes.
you're seeing a lot of these sewer pipes that are either clogged up or have to be
Oh yeah.
repiped. So that's a huge expense. So one of the ones I started incorporating was sewer inspection and a feasibility or an ADU specialist to go and do a site inspection, whatever you want to call it. But
especially if it's been mentioned, and that was the thing with the law, because it was like it's detrimental reliance. That's a concept when words that you say, when I tell you that I want to buy something to build something for my
that's key
mother,
right there.
okay, you cannot put your head in the sand. And later, when I find out that I closed escrow, I'm trying to start this process and find out that I cannot do it, not only because of the unseen sewer problem, but out of my area, we have septic tanks.
Septic,
And
right.
if the lot isn't a certain size and different things that go into seeing whether or not you can increase the septic or put a separate sec to even support an ADU, some people are not able to build ADUs because of the septic systems now, because of the lot size or whatever.
Right.
And so if you as a realtor, that once they put it out there and you need to CYA and you need to let them know there are ADU specialists, ADU consultants, general contractors, people, and even the agency and websites that they need to look at. And you need to have that in writing, sign that they received it, to say that, you didn't have them relying on you, because they can come back up to like 4 years.
Right.
Contractual statute of limitations for written contracts is like 4 years. So you got the commission, you done spend it, you probably done changed brokers 2 times, and you
right, and then it comes to haunt you. Right.
And you have nothing to say that you told them that you weren't the expert, and they needed to call somebody in within this 17-day period. Exactly. And it's just really important. So
that's a huge point. And they can call someone, you do Riverside County, right, and the Inland Empire. Yeah. So someone, if there's realtors listening to it, you can just call Dr. Sharon and say, hey, I'm in the buying process with the buyer. Their intention is to buy it because they want to build an ADU. That was the whole purpose of them buying in the first place. We have a home inspection scheduled next week at 2:00. Can you come during that time? Also being mindful, right, of the time frame, people's time. If it's owner occupied, be mindful and try to schedule everything in one day if possible. Yeah, exactly. Or, if it's vacant, try to do it as soon as you open escrow, like wire the EMD and get this going. Now, typically, an inspection is $450 to $550. A site inspection might be between $300 to $600, but it's worth it. It's worth you knowing whether your property is zoned for it, what's allowed, what's feasible, like what you have in mind. Is that even, achievable, like with what you're buying?
Yeah. And the other thing, when we talk about this, that you and I have in common, being that we are licensed realtors, we can put that demand into escrow and get paid out of escrow. So if your clients can't do it, I mean, it's almost, I'm looking at a lot of the opportunities and the way we work with agents. That's being kind of like a transaction coordinator, except we're ADU specialists.
Exactly.
And our fees can be paid out of escrow. We just need to have an understanding and, with your client, or, whether we're working directly with the agent, but because of that license, we can be compensated from escrow as part of the sale. So, that's awesome. So you need to really reach out and do the best for your clients and negotiate how payment will be made.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, those were a couple hacks for some of the agents listening to us. I think one of the last topics that had came up also in this last Casita Coalition call was just the friction when working with cities still to this day, right? So we talked about words and how important words are. Knowing like your background in law, when you're talking to some of these planners, with the city via email, and you're wanting to reference the code and say, hey, you're telling me I can't do this, but I know it's been done in the past because I know of this other property that was done and it was passed. And why are you telling me it wasn't done? But doing it in the most amicable way where you don't insult them, you don't make them feel some sort of way. Like during the course with Timothy, we got to hear a lot about like their mindset and how they're how they're trained versus how what we're trying to get across. Like, we're not here to give you a hard time. We want to get our plans through. Yeah. But sometimes it's difficult because at the end of the day, you're not dealing with the screen, you're dealing with people behind that screen.
Exactly. And I've gone down.
Any hacks there that you have? Any lingo that you can help me out?
No, it is really, I mean, you just try the best you can with the emails and written, but I mean, the emails are hard enough, but I've had it even in person. I've gone to the cities with the contractor, with the homeowner. I mean, if you go 3 times, you're going to get 3 different, different responses. And, you go in understanding the code, understanding what the state's allowing, whatever, trying to see. And I've had responses like one city, we were there with the contractor, had a potential client wanted to put in an ADU. and wanted to do an SB9 lot split. And finally, after asking about 3 or 4 questions, the representative at the counter finally says, we haven't gotten, clear direction. So we don't know how much it's going to cost. We don't know what the process. We're waiting for the first applicant to figure it out. Okay. And then I've had another one, they would go and they went back to the supervisor, I guess, asking questions. And finally, after they went back several times, said, they didn't even want me to see their name or who was trying to answer the question. It's like, we haven't gotten clear direction on that yet. When we do, we can call you or something. And it's like, no, I have a client like now. So, and that's why, like I said, people don't want to write down anything, but you need to know what the state says, and we've had the training with the ADU Coalition, some of the other experts in the area like Ryan and Timothy and so forth. And it's like, write it down, make it plain, go to, the HCD or whatever and try to get some
handbooks is the best way to get started. And then from there, we have that new updated government code cheat sheet. That basically helps you find whatever it is that you're looking for in the code. It helps you find it a lot quicker. But I was having a conversation.
To be nice. You do have to be nice at the counter because they don't know. It's even like, one time I was talking to was there with a client talking to the police officer, and we were citing the penal code, and they said, well, you're an attorney. I understand the penal code, but not in the same manner you do, So it's like you go in there and this is the law, and it's like, no, we haven't had that direction yet.
There's a lot of egos. There's a lot of egos to deal with, like we deal with in real estate, right? It's no different.
People don't like change, and this is a changing thing, and they don't like anybody that's trying to force change on them, or it comes across like you're more,
or even like question their knowledge because going back to this whole like updated legislations every couple months or every year, it's kind of hard. They're not really given a break. They got to stay up to date with all these code changes, and of course it's not their job, but at the same time it is our job, and we're trying to get it across, and help clients. So it does take a level of emotional intelligence, just like it does in real estate. These are
it takes a team.
It takes a team, and purchases and build outs are both lengthy processes. To buy a house, 30 to 45 days. To build one, you're talking 6 to 9 months, even 12 months. You have to be like married to the process and trust that the person who's helping you assemble this team is somebody that you can trust. So what would you say is like some of those key points for not only realtors, but I would say for investors, whether they're new or existing investors, to learn how to vet people? Like if somebody wanted to work with you in Riverside, what's the best way? Like, do they set up a call with you? Do they go to one of your projects? Like how would you do it? Right.
Most of the calls and initial consultations come through virtually. Like I'm redoing the website under adu-advantage.com. There they can see all the some of the products that I have to offer, some of the services, what they want to book for. I do have a free 20-minute consultation to get started and to talk and discuss what next steps are going to be. And then it all depends because you try to build this network, and so people call in and they either want modular, they want stick build, they're looking at a steel frame. However, they don't know where the money's coming from yet,
Right.
So it's like being the consultant. I can say I can be like your personal assistant. I'm trying to get you from dream to reality. Okay. And then I can walk with you, or I can hand you off to a contractor or someone if you know
a lender or somebody.
Yeah. But a lot of times people get frustrated because they're trying to talk to a lender or have a conversation with an architect. And those are unique skills. And the architect is drawing. He's trying kind of like a scientist. It's precision, it's compliance, it's trying to get your dreams down. And he's not really talking to you about what your daughter thinks you should build an ADU or have it purple or have courts versus whatever. I can be that consultant, okay? And when you look out in the backyard and say, they're doing stuff, but it doesn't look like what we agreed to, that's the call to the consultant, okay? Not to go out and stop the workers. I mean, it's just so many times. Sometimes we become our own worst enemy. So you have to understand you have a team, and that team has a purpose. I'm not the contractor, but I can be your best friend and walk with you side by side through the process to reduce your stress and to be your extra eyes and ears when you're at work or away or dealing with family problems, trying to get the process done.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it well earlier when you said we're sort of like transaction coordinators, but on the
Yeah.
ADU side. So,
Yeah.
do you offer, I know you offer like full on consulting, but let's say I have my own architect and I have my own contractor, and I have my own lender. I'm using a
Yeah.
HELOC loan and I know what
Right.
I want to build. I'm doing a
Right.
simple garage conversion,
Right.
but I don't want to deal with the architect, the lender, and the contractor. Can
Right.
you deal with them every
Yeah.
single month until the project is done?
Yes, yes, I can do that. And then for investors that are out of area, you kind of do like you did for BPOs and for appraisal,
Mhm, mhm.
and
Yeah,
verify it's being done. Take the photos, just like you represent for the banks when they have property, just to see the condition and going on, that kind of thing. So I offer that. So it can be from A to Z or for specific, like I have one client now. I mean, they're very well connected, contractors in the family, solar people in the family,
mhm.
investors all in the family. And it's like when I met with them, it's like, okay, I know that I was introduced to you because say, hey, it's ADUs, you need to talk to Dr. Sharon, but where do I fit in? Because you're so well connected. But what
Mm,
they needed was the assessment to say, okay, what can I build in my area? What are some of the problems? What do you see and suggest, where we start?
that you do.
These kind of, and so to give them that assessment or feasibility report and guide them through and help them go next steps, because they know the opportunity, they're dreaming of it, but they need to know step one, step two. And the other thing is, like with homeowners, this is allowing homeowners and property owners to be builders and developers, and they've never done this before.
Never, yeah. And
Never. And so
and
one
then
of
like having to know about architectural plans, having
yeah,
to understand construction, having to
yeah,
understand lending,
yeah,
like it's just a lot of hats
right.
for you to want to take on that full
Yeah. And
project
the
yourself.
mindset, you have to think in terms of phases. You want
Right.
four, but we got to talk about phase one and how that's going to take place, and how the schedule and what the financial returns are going to be on that to leverage to the next. It's like the big builders, they release properties and product in phases. You are just doing it on a smaller scale. And so,
That's a good way to look
to
at it.
to
Yeah.
handle with their mindset and everything. And we talked about, that instant return. Well, it's not just the rental income, it's the property value, and it's other things. It's the benefit of the solar on your main property. I mean, all kind of things go into, so it's not simple math, and it's not just rental
No.
income as
And
to
it's
how
not a
it can
one
help
glove
you.
fits all, right? Because
Oh, exactly not.
everyone has a different motivation, everyone wants a different outcome, and
Yeah.
it is a very unique case for every single
There's so
investor.
many options from
It's too many.
exterior
And
type.
that's the other thing, right? Like sometimes people get overwhelmed with so many
Yeah.
options. So I always say to people, like, it sounds like you're all over the place. You may just want to pick one and go with that first. And you're going to
Right.
learn along the way. And then you'll figure out if you want to do more of it, or if you don't, or you want to transition or do something else. But you won't know until you go through the motion and you pick the right team. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And then from there, everything else follows, right?
Yeah. But there's so much stuff out there, because we know as realtors what the definition of real estate is, that permanent foundation. And I really, again, words matter. I understand what a tiny home is, but people don't, because they'll say, oh, you deal with them tiny homes. No,
Me too.
no, 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 no.
No.
No, they're not tiny homes. Tiny homes are usually like on a chassis. They're like the convertible bugs, the
They're
convertible
on
monsters.
wheels.
I
They're
mean, they're the creative type of thing, but they're not necessarily on a permanent foundation, and they're not going to increase your property. But then the other thing is that really there's two nuances I don't think that's made plain enough when it comes to ADUs. Number one, it's more like you have the opportunity to build a custom home in your backyard versus
Mhm.
thinking of it like you're a tough shed or some tiny,
Like you're
you
just
are
bringing a
building a
tiny home
custom
on wheels and
home.
park it.
You are building a custom home in your backyard, the same quality or better than what you're living in or what the new home builder is building down the street. Number two is that for the first time, the average homeowner, property owner, has the ability to build something that is combining residential real estate with commercial real estate. And so if you're not trained in ADUs and you're not trained in commercial, you really don't understand when you're just been in that niche of only residential, and now you're trying to build something. I mean, it's just totally different. It's a lot. And so I think that's why the education and the things that we're doing, and the club members are really small as to ADU specialists. And then within those club members, a lot of them are contractors or come from contracting background, design backgrounds. There's a smaller subsection that's actually real estate, residential or commercial. So it's definitely an up and coming niche that realtors
I think our niche
pay attention to.
We do. Yeah, I think what we do is very unique in today's market, but it'll be the norm. And I think
it will be the norm, and realtors need to pay attention now.
Yeah, it'll be the norm. And then by then, hopefully you and I are building, 30 ADUs.
We're retired. Hey, we're just going talking to 5,000, 10,000 people and telling them the new stuff and how we got over. I do generational wealth.
Exactly. I think we'll definitely be ahead's time, but there's so many collaborations that you and I see us doing. I did a 6-month ADU women's mastermind where it was a call once a month, and we went over every single part of the process. So I had somebody come in, talk about design. I had a contractor, I had a lender, I had even a title rep, a CPA, to talk about taxes, and just kind of went through the whole motion for women in the space, whether they're consultants or realtors. One of the last calls that we did was about marketing and branding, because that's very important too. It's like how you market yourself. I think I work with a lot of investors, and my real estate clients now, the majority of them come to work with me because of the fact that I understand the ADU process. A lot of them, if they want to buy, it's because they want to buy and build, or if they want to list, or, sometimes they want to list and they call me and they're like, hey, I don't know if I should list or if I should convert or maximize highest and best use, rent them out. You can help me rent them out. You can help me build them. And then I can go buy something else and rinse and repeat. So that's the other thing too. Like, a lot of realtors out there think, well, if I go to a listing appointment, I may not get the listing if I talk about the ADU strategy. Well, that's where the consultant, hat comes into play. And that's one that your clients will value in the long run, because now you've opened up that client's mindset. They probably didn't need to sell their home. They just needed to maximize highest and best use on that home. Now they can go buy something else. And when they go buy something else and they grow their portfolio, who do you think they're going to call when they're ready? You. So you can help them do the feasibility on that new home, new project, rinse and repeat the process. So it's long term to have repeat clients, right? Like, I see myself working more with repeat investor clients who I can grow the portfolio with, rather than trying to get 50 new clients every year. Like, let me just grow with the 10.
Exactly. Yeah. Recently, someone in West Covina, and so it was major rehab. So I've worked with the seller to even get it ready. We have a program where they can get up to $50,000 with no interest, no interest, no hidden fees or anything like that. So we took that and we redid the kitchen. We redid the bathrooms and whatever. So we did the heavy lifting, even upgraded the electrical panel. So then we had this buyer come in and they want to add the ADU. Well, there were certain things they wanted to do, but the heavy lifting, they had basically one rental property and already during that inspection period, brought in the contractor, started the application process with the city, and will probably have that ADU built and ready within like 6 months, because they were just on it. They already knew what they were going to do. And so having someone that understands the ADU, then I was a benefit on both sides, and to the agent and everything as well, because this buyer was bringing in the ADU strategy and looking at the work that I had been able to do with the seller as being a value added. And so that investor, and so he's looking, got any more, picks up any more, let me know.
Exactly. The trust is there because they understand and respect the knowledge that you've taken the time to accumulate by doing the work, but also feeding yourself knowledge. And it's so important to be in these same types of groups. That's why I love doing the podcast. I love having people on like you who just share their expertise, and I think we're more than ADU specialists. I like to say we're ADU strategists, because we're not just
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just a specialty. We're actually thinking outside the box. Like when I help clients, I'm not just doing the feasibility and the proposal or estimated proposal. I'm also doing the ROI analysis. So I give them a rental analysis, right? How much is it going to rent for? What is my, BPO or ARV calculated just based on the data? We don't have a lot of it, but we are getting there in the MLS, so use the MLS to your advantage. Tomorrow, I actually have a post. I'm posting every Friday now. I'm going to post on Instagram active listings with ADUs in Orange County and LA County. And then I'm also sharing ADU properties for sale with open houses. So I'm kind of just giving stats to agents, and to people like, hey, here's how many there are. There's about 400 in LA County right now, actives and coming soons with an ADU. Now, that data is also a little bit distorted because sometimes agents will put, yes, it has an ADU, but to your point, like earlier, it probably isn't an ADU. It's probably a room conversion, or just
even if without a lot of them say potential ADU, and then the section on the MLS that said, is it an ADU? They usually put no or leave it blank. It doesn't give you much help in answering. It's like 10 questions. And one of them, it said type of, I went through it and I looked at each one of them, no help at all. And then it says type of ADU. And when I clicked on the button, one of the types was standard. I said, I have no idea what a standard ADU
mean?
That is not okay. So we need help not only on the real estate level, but some of our
need the words. We need the words changed in the ADU in the MLS. But I do think that there's so much that you and I could do too. Like I've wondered, how can we tap into car forms and partner up with them and try to educate some of the realtors. But I think it just comes down with the ones who want to can reach out, and I think the more we put ourselves out there, we are also showing that this is a new norm of what real estate professionals should be doing for their clients and then for themselves. Because one of the last questions I had for you, again, because of your background, I'm taking advantage here. I've thought about, I deal, and you probably deal with a lot of investor clients who want to bring you on into the deal. Let's say it's a small multifamily development project. It could be a fourplex. Now with SB 1211, they want to add another 4, maybe 5 if it's doable, and they kind of want to bring their money in together. Have you thought about creating like a ADU fund or structuring?
I thought about the ADU fund, and even kind of like some people are doing like the syndications, but again,
syndications,
again, it has to be, first of all, you have to have everything in place. And a lot of people, when they want to get together and invest in a project or whatever, especially they're not experienced, they'll come in and they say, well, it's going to cost $200,000 to do the ADU, and we each going to bring in $50,000. Blah, blah. It's like, there's no administrative costs. I'm not doing anything without insurance in place, an attorney in place with written documents, and a CPA. If you can't afford those 3, then we're just playing house, and I'm not doing that. And then, people come and unfortunately, most people that come with the idea of doing the project don't have the infrastructure or the funds to put it in. And again, if we can't afford to get an attorney, and it's not, we talk about, I think $5,000 or $10,000 retainer is a lot. That's nothing compared to $100,000 judgment against you for messing up, or your contractor disappearing, or whatever. And everything comes with deadlines and obligations. So I've thought about it. I haven't done it yet, but it's a possibility. Because some people, and I remember the the gentleman that there was a company that was leasing out the backyards and putting the ADUs on the backyard. I did look into that a lot because, and now we got the canalization and things, but if they're putting it there and renting it out and sharing part of that with the homeowner, I still think that's a great concept.
That's going to be a good one. Now we still have to see the implementation of AB 1033, which is probably going to take a whole year.
Or more. Yeah, because everything with the.
But I'm really excited for that because that's another way that realtors can, create more business, create more inventory. ADUs have helped with housing, but I don't think that they've helped with inventory, right? Because like ADUs aren't for sale, so you don't have more listings. But I think with AB 1033, once most cities have a checklist and they have a streamlined process with it, now you can help people sell off their ADU and maybe structure a deal in a different way. I was asking because I have had the opportunity thrown at me a couple of times, and I'm just like, okay, if I was to partner up with people, there would have to be obviously somebody who's more passive, who's not going to be as involved. I'd be taking on more of the sweat equity on the deal by doing the work. So rather than getting paid a consultation or a commission, you get partial equity in the deal. I think that's also a benefit to our knowledge. So as a realtor, there's multiple ways, if you learn this business of ADUs, for you to kind of.
I think the bottom line is that it's time. I mean,
it's time. I hope you got
the consumer is leading the realtors because it's coming up. The real estate industry is trying to acknowledge ADUs by implementing it in our contracts and in the MLS. And although it's still changing, it is time to really get in the water and test it out and understand where we are today and a little bit how we got there, because 2026 is it's still going to be a new game. I mean, it changes constantly right now. It's a ways from being solid ground, but it's worth getting involved. And I think partnering with people like us to help them satisfy their clients and not get in trouble. At least know there's options out there. Because again, a lot of realtors don't even know that there's ADU specialists out there, or what that means, or
what it means,
what it costs. And I'm trying to help you save your commission, not lose your commission, not steal your client. I mean, it's just a new niche, and they need to be educated and understand things that they can do. So I think that's where we come in at.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sharon Barnes, again, for your time. How can people connect with you directly? I will be putting all your information down below, your website and everything, but what's the easiest way for people to just schedule a 20-minute consultation with you?
The consultation would be to go to the website. There will be a link there to schedule a calendar call with me. The free one, or if they need a strategy, let's see some of the options that's there. So that's adu-advantage.com. They can try to email me, Dr. Sharon at adu-advantage.com, and I can respond to emails and maybe give them a response and next steps or see what's best. But that's the best way. That's the best way. And then I just want to mention too, May 3rd, at the Riverside County Fair Housing office in Riverside on Mission, we'll be having an ADU mini summit, about 2 hours for homeowners and realtors. I know now that I'm going to be there making a presentation along with one of my premier real lenders, and we're also looking for a couple ADU contractors and builders in the area to come in. So one thing I've been trying to do, even with the radio show, was to show our local resources, talents, and appraisers and so forth. And so we're still trying to see who's doing what in our.
I have to connect you with Sydney. He's based out of San Diego, but he's done appraisals for me. I mean, for a couple of years now. He's very very well versed in ADUs. Like you could say he's probably the only ADU niche appraiser I know. Great content and great speaker.
Great. Yeah, we'd love to have that. And so, like I say, it's about building the network and being a resource to our community and our professional colleagues.
That's right. The professional ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's another conversation for another time. But really vet the people that you choose to work with. These
Exactly.
ADU projects are lengthy projects. They're not quick turnaround types of rehabs. So finding the right people who won't leave you halfway done with the project
Yeah.
is crucial, because you're not talking about $500 here. We're talking
Yeah.
about 200,000 to 300,000, right? So
Exactly.
choose
And nobody
wisely.
wants, yeah, nobody wants to have a half done ADU. And then,
No,
it's
no.
hard because the ADUs are built on private property, so they're hard to get into. So it is consultants and strategists like ourselves who make those connections, who see the projects, document the
Right.
projects, and know, because there's a lot of liability with you going on personal property, and the contractor can't always get you on their project. So you need to rely and to have a team, but to be able to see that they can deliver.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for your time. We'll
Oh,
chat
thank you.
offline because
Okay.
we got a lot, coming. So we'll leave it at that for you guys.
Okay. All right,
Thank
Stephanie. All
you.
right. Hey, I
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
This was fun. See you
This was
soon. All
fun. Thank you.
right.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. I hope you found this episode informative and helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat about ADUs and help you with your journey, whether it's consulting, acquisitions, management, you name it. Just reach out to me and let's schedule a quick call. And lastly, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. I'll be back next week with another great guest and more insights on all things ADU. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time.